Good morning, friends. Welcome back to GM Philosophy in the Morning. I'm the GM Philosopher. Today I'm going to share a hot take, my number one criticism of most game masters. This is, I think, the number one thing I see game masters doing wrong in the TTRPG space. Now, I want to clarify, this video isn't meant to be an attack on any game masters. This video is intended for me to share my honest perspective on what I see is the biggest thing that goes wrong in the TTRPG space where game masters are concerned. The goal and purpose of this channel is to empower game masters to run better games, and in the spirit of that, I want to share this. And I've been thinking about this a lot, and I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. I believe that the number one thing that game masters are getting wrong with TTRPGs nowadays, right now in the world, is a lack of boldness and a lack of confidence. And I do not mean just with running the game, though I do believe that this is playing a role. I think that the number one issue I'm seeing with game masters nowadays is a lack of boldness in all aspects. A lack of boldness in running the kind of game you want to run. A lack of boldness in being willing to vet players, saying to some players, you know what, I don't think you're the right kind of player for my game, and then going out, spending the energy, having the confidence to find the players who are going to match up, align with the kind of game you want to run. I think that there are a lot of GMs who are struggling with self-doubt, self-confidence, not being bold in the sense that they believe they can actually run an amazing game for the players. I think that we have a lot of game masters who are afraid of having bored players. They're afraid of having the game fall flat. And while I totally understand these fears. These are the fears you're gonna feel when you go to run games. However, here's what I would tell you. I would tell you, friend, that not having the boldness to do these things with like solidarity with yourself is gonna run the risk of like creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. Okay, I can't think of any better way to explain this. If you go into a game situation and you say, I want to run an amazing game, I want this to be the tone, I want these to be the themes, I want it to be like this, and then you meet up with your players and they're kind of wishy-washy about it, or, they don't really seem into it, please have the boldness to then just walk away from that table and say, well, it's okay. They're not really into it. I need to find a new group to game with. Now, I understand that if the goal is to game with this group of friends, then that's a different conversation. It's like, yeah, we all game together. Here is the kind of game they want to play. I'm going to make a game that they want because the goal is actually to play with those people, not to play the type of game I really want to play. It's really important to make a distinction between those two things. It's very, very important to make that distinction because those are two different goals, actually. They can both lead you to a great gaming experience at the table, but they are different goals. That means you build your priorities differently, okay? And that's okay, but just be aware that that's happening, right? I think a lot of game masters actually have the goal of wanting to play with this group of friends, but they think they're failing at the goal of running the kind of game they want to run, when the truth is they're judging themselves for failing the goal of running the game they want to run, when that was never actually the goal they set out to achieve, and then they judge themselves for it, right? And I think that this comes, I think that we can conceptualize all of this as sort of a lack of boldness, a lack of GMs owning their confidence, owning their seat, saying, I wish to lead an intrepid group of storytelling adventurers on an epic quest within our imaginations to do some pretty cool stuff, to find some amazing treasure, to battle some horrific monsters. And I believe that I'm up to the task because I care about it. And because I am the type of person who keeps trying to improve, who takes feedback well, who listens to the players, who watches them and tries to keep them engaged. And if I realize we're going in a direction that is sort of, not jiving, we will switch it up, we will change, right? We will transform, we'll evolve. So if you are the type of GM who can say these things like, yes, I want to do my best. Yes, I'm going to try to make every session better than the last. Yes, I want to pay attention to my players. I want them to be engaged. I want to do this job well. Then, friend, you are already in the top percentile of people who are probably going to succeed greatly. And let me tell you something. I think that 99% of game masters out there are already incredibly successful. The problem is they judge themselves a lot. They aren't bold enough to see the good they do They just focus on the things that bring them down, the things that make them feel inadequate. And there's also an element of once you start down that sort of like self-negative talk journey, then that's going to come back around and be reflected in the way that you run the game. If you are a very confident game master who believes in your abilities, you know you're not perfect, but you believe in your abilities and you deploy them at the table and you realize, oh, maybe I made a little mistake here or there, but really, to be honest, it is a pretty awesome game, which is actually probably true of most of the games you run if you are, at all well-versed and kind of on the path of how to run a successful TTRPG. And the real litmus test of that is, do your players keep coming back? If you keep having groups just fall apart and no one wants to game with you, you might actually have an issue. But if you're running games and people keep coming back, then the truth is you're probably a lot better than you give yourself credit for. Now, there are some narcissistic game masters out there who basically invite players to the table just to run like a controlled novel at them, right? That is what narcissistic game masters do. They do not invite people to the table for a shared collective creation experience. They invite people to the table because they want to have control over these people. They want to dominate the narrative. They want to push their story onto like 3 or 4 or 5 people and basically force them into experiencing their inner headspace novel. That's what narcissistic game masters do. Most GMs do not do this. This is not how most people run games. So if you're not doing that, you already deserve to have a big boost of confidence, a big boost of boldness, knowing that you're on the right path, even if you're not perfect yet, because none of us are perfect and we're never going to be perfect at running games. Okay. Even like Critical Role, who is probably running the most popular D&D game of all time, I literally hear in the Discord community that, people criticize them, for this or that. No one's ever going to get it perfect. It is a communal, social, creative endeavor. But here's what I want you to do today. I want you to have some boldness, friend. I want you to have some boldness in yourself, in your craft. I don't want you to focus on your flaws and then flip the script into you being timid in how you choose players, in what you decide to do with your game, in how you run your game, in the nitty-gritty of it day to day. I don't want that to be characterized by fear or doubt with you. I want you to characterize all of your game mastering methodologies in self-confidence, self-empowerment, believing that you are doing a great job and just saying, yes, I know we all had a great time in that last session. Yeah, maybe I'm focused on a couple little mistakes, but I'm happy about it. I had a great time and I want to make it even better this session. How can I improve, right? This is what we want to be telling ourselves. That's the attitude we want to approach the table with. And I tell you this from experience because I have certainly dealt with a lack of boldness at the table. For years and years, I would just get so down on myself if I felt like there was one mistake. And I felt like that ruined it for all the players. But that never ever happened. The players always came back. And the truth is if I talked to them about it, and this is partly how I learned this, I would learn that it seemed like such a big deal to me, but to them, maybe they hardly even remembered it. It was just such a small thing because they just moved on and went to the next scene and they basically forgot about it. The reason you feel differently is because you feel responsible for it, right? And that makes a big difference. Players don't usually feel responsible for it because they're not the one running the game. So a lot of times, if you do something that you think is a mistake, you are going to judge yourself like literally 100 times more than your players are. Okay. So that's what I wanted to share today. I just had that in my mind, wanted to get that out here. I hope that this encourages some of you and maybe causes some of you to think to yourself, you know what, maybe I should be a little more bold at my table. Maybe I shouldn't doubt myself quite as much. Maybe I should try to characterize my games with self-confidence and to run through that filter instead of a filter of timidness or self-doubt. And I think that that's true. I think that's what you should do. So boom, get out there and play some D&D. Thank you so much for coming back to GM Philosophy in the morning. Empowering game masters to run better games is our goal here. I will see you awesome people on the next one.